Hello everyone, and welcome to video discussion number 1. This week we were tasked to find someone after the Civil War to explore this person's economic or entrepreneurship of that nature during the economy after the Civil War. Civil War is certainly no time that is not notable for its many distinguished men and women, those who both served in the war and those who were affected afterward. I had a little trouble actually finding a very specific person that I wanted to explore because there are so many. I eventually settled on Robert Smalls, whose story is quite incredible. It is the unfortunate nature of war that it benefits economies. We can see that certainly during the impact of the Second World War from the Great Depression. America entered a booming economy at that point. So the Civil War was different though for a specific reason. The outcome of that war was the emancipation of hundreds of thousands of slaves and a complete razing of the South. The South was completely decimated by the war, but the North wasn't unscathed either. Either way, 600,000 Americans died during the war, and this had a significant impact on agriculture, on industry, and of the family life. Robert Smalls was a former slave. He became a Union spy and a United States Navy captain after he escaped from bondage, took over the ship that was hauling him away, and took the ship up to the Union and gave it to them as a prize. For his efforts and his bravery, they gave him the rank of captain, and he became a well decorated U.S. Navy captain. He would eventually go on after the war to become one of the first black Americans who became a House representative of South Carolina. Smalls' story is very unique in 1860. And the fact that he was paid a salary. In fact, Frederick Douglass commented on this in the Frederick Douglass writings. He said in 1864, Mr. Smalls' salary was $150 per month, which was considered a very high salary in those times, and he was the highest paid black man in the United States at the time, which was incredible considering that this is directly after the war and after the 1870s was certainly a time of segregation, Reconstruction, Jim Crow, many of those impactful legislations. One of the things that Smalls did after the war was he also started a business, a very wealthy wealth building business with the Freedmen's Bureau. He opened a freedmen's shop in order to help those who had been recently freed, and many of them weren't welcome in the regular places of commerce, and so he built that. He was also a very big proponent of public education. And while his story is inspirational, it is very isolated. Not very many in that time period who were former slaves had the benefits that he did. And most of it was due to his heroic nature, I guess. His fame would be the right word. His fame as the Navy captain. But Smalls went into business with a man named Richard Gleaves. This was the freedman's shop. And at the time, after his business, he would become very wealthy. In fact, his net worth, including his personal property, was about $6,000, which in today's money is equivalent to over $150,000. It's quite a sum. Smalls would die in 1913, and yet his legacy as the Navy captain, a representative of the House from South Carolina, a business owner, and an advocate for public schools with anti-segregationism lives on. However, as I said, it's important to note that Smalls' story is shrouded by the many thousands of black and white families that struggled greatly after the Civil War. In last week's discussion, I wrote about the dichotomy of the North and South, specifically dealing with their horse populations when it came to industry, and how many of the South used their own animals in the war, and so they risked not just their own lives but their livelihood back home. And of course, General Sherman's march on the South created a huge problem for the South in rebuilding. In fact, one of General Sherman's subordinates commented during the March of the Sea of the raising of Georgia. He said, "To sustain it, we must war upon and destroy the organized rebel forces. We must cut off their supplies, destroy their communications, and produce among the people of Georgia a thorough conviction of personal misery which attends war, and the utter helplessness and inability of their rulers to protect them. If that terror and grief and even want shall help to paralyze their husbands and fathers who are fighting us, it is a mercy in the end." Well, if Robert Smalls is any inspiration to those that benefited from the Reconstruction period, I'm sure there are many more, and he will not be as isolated as predisposed. Thank you.